Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to start letting people in, Michaela.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Timely Topics. My name is Michaela Hartle. I'm a program assistant at the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. We are joined by Lorrainne, a storyteller, fashion designer, author, and two-time award-nominated podcast producer. Today, Nova will be discussing the relationship between creativity and burnout. Nova, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. I think this is such an important topic for many reasons. One, we need creativity in everything, all that we do, right? From cooking to, for those of us that are writers or designers or builders, to even doing something as simply as exercising. You know, if you're not creative in how you exercise, because we all are built differently, you may end up hurting yourself or even burning out on an activity such as that. And burnout, of course, for obvious reasons, it affects our well being and our mental health. And we can't be our best selves and we can't produce our best works if we're not healthy mentally and or physically. So burning out could lead to either of those things, and on the extreme side it could lead to disease and even worse. So again, things that we sort of take for granted, both our creative powers as well as things that we love, kind of burning us into the ground and not even realizing it as it's happening. So for those of you here that are students and or faculty, I'm sure you're going to be able to relate to the stories and some of the tips that you can incorporate into your day-to-day lives. So again, thank you, Michaela, for having me, and as well as the University of Connecticut, my alma mater. I'll share a little more about my journey and why I'm even here today talking about these incredible topics. So again, I'm Nova Lorraine. I'm the founder of Rain Magazine. I'm the author of the book Unleash Your Supernova, which you haven't seen it yet. It was a big accomplishment, but took a lot of creativity and years to bring it to life. But I'll get into that later. I'm also a mom of four. I used to cheerlead at the University of Connecticut. If any of you guys know Ray Allen and Kevin Ali and Rebecca, oh my gosh, why am I blanking out? Rebecca. Um,
Lobo.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say my friend's name, which is Robledo. I'm like, it's not Robledo. Rebecca Lobo. Yeah, that was my era, and had the pleasure of taking that amazing roller coaster ride at the Rise of the Huskies during the 90s. So very, very fond memories, still some of the best years. And I hope some of you can still say the same, looking back, some of the best years of your life being at UConn. Went on to get my master's there. Um, but so yeah, that's a little bit about my personal connection with UConn. But as I said, I was on my journey getting my PhD at the University of Connecticut. Had an incredible mentor, Dr. Chinsky, in the psychology department there, that guided me on that path. And I was living my best life. I was just married. I had a full scholarship. I had a teaching position. And then one day I was struck with this idea that I was going to help people through my love of fashion. And it seems so random. And as you go through life, you realize there's really no randomness. Like everything is connected. But just to set the stage, I'm one of six, Jamaican born. My parents immigrated here, and growing up in a very traditional Jamaican home, uh, being a fashion designer was not on the table. Growing up in the middle of Connecticut, it wasn't the most artistic or stylish place to be. So this definitely seemed like a random thought at the time. And I ignored it at first. I continued to, do my studies in grad school and, teach, but it wouldn't go away. And that eventually created uh, now I could look back, it created anxiety attacks. I was having chest pains. I literally thought I was dying. I'm very theatrical, I can be. So I went on to the doctor and they checked my heart and they're like, "You're fine. Your heart is fine. Is there something you're stressing about?" And then of course me being my first year in grad school thinking I know everything, I was like, oh no, not me, not a grad student. I would know if I was stressed out, right? And that's the ego talking, which we have to learn to let go as we move forward in life. And so I started to think, I'm like, well, what is it? And then boom, you got to go to New York kept popping into my head. And I then decided to take that seriously and had some conversations with, the important people in my life and made the decision to pivot from getting my PhD and becoming Dr. Forrest at the time to going off to New York and studying fashion design and finding my way there. I didn't really know how those dots were going to connect, but I took that leap of faith and I have not looked back. And 5 years into my journey of being a fashion designer and winning awards and being featured in dream magazines like Italian Vogue, being able to do a fashion show at the Apollo Theater and getting my designs in films like with the likes of directors like Robert Altman, came equal lows. And there were many times that I wanted to, jump off the roller coaster and I wanted to give up and I wanted to let go of this dream of being a designer, which in essence is a creative entrepreneur. If you are using your creative talents to sustain yourself and as your day-to-day work, you're a creative entrepreneur. And so 5 years into that journey, I was inspired to launch Rain magazine. I wanted to put out there what I didn't have as a designer coming into the space. I started my company as a young mom. I had 2 kids in tow, a few years after getting married. We started our family. Didn't plan it like that, but they came. No regrets, but they came. And which I had to shift gears. And what you're going to learn, and as we go into more about creativity and burnout, is just being okay with being as flexible as a bamboo tree, like bend with the wind, because it doesn't matter how hard the wind blows you in another direction. If you're open and if you're flexible, you're going to be able to go with it. And there's usually something beautiful on the other side. It may not seem that way at first, once you get over the initial shock, but there usually is. And so 5 years later, Rain was launched, and again, stepping into a new space in media and publishing, and never created a magazine before. I did some editing for a large publishing house and had this great idea, and I wanted to disrupt publishing by putting out an electronic magazine, which was very new at the time. But I wanted to share other people's stories, and I wanted to give them that inspiration and education so they could be successful. Rain has expanded into not only a digital magazine, but print. We are in bookstores and now print on demand for eco reasons. And now we have expanded into a podcast network called Pink Kangaroo. And that's Kangaroo with a U for those of you that love podcasts. And I had to write this book because there were so many stories inside of me that I would share casually with others along this journey. And they would say, can you put that in a book? Can you put that in a book? And then I decided, well, you know what? I can help so many more people with a book than I can just by one sharing one by one stories. And so I decided to take the endeavor of becoming a writer and an author. And that in and of itself was a roller coaster ride. And, when you're doing these different things, such as launching businesses or actively designing, as I'm creating dresses or, coming up with new ideas or writing a book, all of those things take creativity. And all of those things to be successful, you need to not burn out along that journey. I mean, even something as motherhood, you could burn out. Being a student, you could burn out. Starting a new job, you can burn out. Like almost anything can lead you to burn out if you're not careful. But there's ways to kind of pay attention and see it coming and avoid getting there. And I'm just going to pause for a second just to get an idea of, just with emojis, how many people here would say that at some point in their life they've burnt out? Just with emojis, just giving a sense of, yeah, right? Like when you're like, oh, I don't feel like getting up today. This sucks, or the one thing that you loved, you're like, I don't really like this anymore. Or, you're just feeling sluggish and tired. So, I mean, there are many signs of burnout that we can get into in a minute, but it's something that if we have not yet experienced it, if we're not careful, we can't. And so my journey of rain, along that journey, there's been moments between motherhood and entrepreneurship, and doing the very thing that I love, such as fashion, where I experienced burnout. And we are all creative beings. We are all here to create. So if you choose to create a building, a book, a design, a garden, a new recipe, it's within all of us. And the goal is to how to maximize our creativity and put it into areas of our life that will increase our well-being, increase our joy, increase our happiness. And how do we do that in a way where we're protecting our mental health, we're protecting, moments of burnout. And so what I like to do is I like to, start with what is the why of what we do, and if everyone could take a moment just to write down on their notepad or on their smartphones, what is your why? Why are you here at UConn? Why did you choose the career choice that you're about to embark on, or the major that you have? If you're a faculty member, why are you teaching? Why did you decide to teach? Why UConn? So I just want to take a second for you guys to write that down. You guys didn't know this was going to be interactive, huh? Because we're going to go over that a little later, but I want you to take a moment to just think about your why. And as you're thinking about that, I will share with you why that's even important and why we're bringing that up. And because typically our whys guide us, they become our North Stars. And sometimes it's for good, sometimes not so good, right? I mentioned that, I'm Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. I'm one of six, and I was the last of my siblings to be born there. And so I was raised in a very, traditional Jamaican family. And, why I chose medicine at the time that I was pursuing originally is because I wanted to help others. My big brother said he wanted to be a doctor. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's how I can help other kids. And I want them to be happier. And it also checked the box for my parents having immigrated here. Like, they're going to be so proud that I'm doing this career where I can, support myself. And then it's also a really respectful career, and it's going to make all their sacrifices worth it, right? So these are the things that I wasn't necessarily conscious of at the time, but when I think back, those are my whys. And that's what guided me. And no matter what obstacle was in front of me, I was going to accomplish becoming a doctor. I was going to be a psychiatrist because I had my whys. And those are subconscious. And so I think that when we are conscious of what is driving us, we can be intentional, because are those good reasons? Is it because I want to be admired? Is it because I want to make a lot of money? Is it because I want to, gain my parents' acceptance or love? Is it because I want my spouse to think I'm smarter? Like, whatever it is, like, what is that? Why? Right? And then, is that for good or not so good? Is it really serving you or not so much? So that is also a great way to avoid burnout if we pay attention to the whys of what we're doing. And it's not just with our careers, it's also with our relationships, and why we're with who we're with, or where we live. Why are we living, in the place that we're living? Is it circumstantial or is it intentional? So these are all things that can really buffer you from burnout, but then also really increase your creativity. And we'll get into that. One thing that I didn't mention is where I am right now. So I sort of left off with Pink Kangaroo and then the book, and the book inspired the podcast, which inspired the network. And now I'm in the space of Web3, blockchains, the metaverse, and NFTs. Never thought in a million years that when I was at UConn and chairing and doing my pre-med courses, or even at FIT, draping on the dress form, that I'm going to end up where I am right now. And what led me to where I am right now was I wanted to find a way to use this new paradigm to do what I love, to be creative and sustain myself, but not just stop there, but to help others who are creative do the same thing. And so it's just coming full circle. Like, me wanting to help people has always been my North Star. How I've chosen to do that would vary throughout the years and based on who I met and my experiences, both the things I succeeded at, and most importantly, those times that I failed, or those times where I felt that there was something missing and I wanted to be the one to help solve that problem. And so super, super important for us to remember our whys and how that ties into creativity and burnout. So I'm going to just read for those of you who have experienced burnout or not sure if it's coming your way. I'm going to just go over some signs of what you should be paying attention to and knowing when to slow down, pause, or even quit what you're doing or where you live or who you're with. Okay. Do you wake up feeling anxious or stressed in the morning before starting your day? Do you make a little effort in selecting what to wear or preparing for your day? Do you avoid speaking or smiling to those around you on your way to school, where you work, or whenever the opportunity arises? Do you find yourself turning to food to cheer yourself up throughout the day? Are you short-tempered with those closest to you? Do you feel a sigh of relief or an immediate lift in your mood when your workday or school day is over? Are you feeling less enthusiastic more than half of the day? So these are just some signs that you're heading down the road of burnout, people. And it could be, again, it could just be, your classes or the people you're around or your environment. It can be a number of things that's driving burnout. So why should we even care? I mentioned that, burnout, we know in terms of mental health. It's obviously a direct tie-in to my original career path in terms of why I decided to want to also bring this up, as a guide and a tool. But why should we even care if we're going down the road of burnout, right? Well, let's think about that. So you've invested a whole lot of time to get to college. You're here now. And there's going to be someone very disappointed, and it could be just you, if you don't finish the journey. Or you've invested a whole lot of time to get to this point in your career. And so when you just think about how precious time is and what's avoiding you from getting to that next goal or aspiration is just your lack of enthusiasm in getting through the day, you're just like, oh, okay, maybe I should stop and think about this. Or what this will do eventually to your physical health, right? Like we can't do anything if we're not physically or mentally well. And there are plenty of people or stories we've heard about uber wealthy individuals that have been stricken with this fatal illness, and it doesn't matter how much money they have. Like this is their fate, right? So we know, or you're really quote unquote successful financially, but then you're depressed, or you turn to alcohol, and we've heard those stories before. So we know it's not necessarily the material things that are going to get us through our day, right? And so it's really important for us to know and pay attention to these signs and then to buffer ourselves. So let's talk about some ways that we could buffer ourselves that we may take for granted. So back in 2020, the infamous 2020, spring of 2020, not even summer of 2020, right? Spring of 2020, I was very fortunate to have gotten an offer, this book offer, to write this book. And the publisher saw how needed it was and what it could do. And then also just the timing of it, because we know the creative economy is growing, the gig economy is growing, and things are changing in how we work and play now. And so, but at that same time, I was approached to take a grad course on mindfulness. And I was being recruited to teach at a school, Penn State. I'm going to say it, Penn State. Sorry, guys. Sorry, UConn. I love you, UConn. But the director of the educational department wanted me to test out their PhD program with the mindfulness course. I was like, sure. It was life-changing. It couldn't have happened at a better time. And it's a very elusive term that I'm sure you may have heard about. And people are like, well, what the heck is mindfulness? It's this woo-woo thing, as yoga, meditation. I don't know what this thing is. But I'm so grateful that I took it, especially at that time, because it taught me so many basic tools of how to protect my creativity and how to avoid burnout. and adding that into just the wheelhouse of all the tools that we can collect along the way in our toolbox. And I say it that way because, these are things that can actively help us in our day to day. And so when you think about building a house, if you're just standing there with wood or bricks, and if you don't have any tools, to like get the cement to lay the bricks or the hammer to nail the nails, whatever, that house isn't getting built anytime soon. Okay. And so it's so important for us to collect these nuggets of wisdom into our toolbox and use it when we need it. So for example, one of the things that I learned is being present is one of the best ways to activate your superpowers of creativity. And you may have heard of Eckhart Tolle and his book, The Power of Now. If you haven't read it, I really encourage you to, and to go into depth in terms of what being present is. But when you're in the present moment, you're activating the feeling of peace. That's the best way I could describe it. There's no fear, there's no anger, there's no frustration. You're just in the moment, and nothing can harm you in that moment. So a lot of times we're driven by fear or love. But when you're in the present moment, you can activate the most powerful and most impactful creative ideas. And so being present, how do you get there? Well, one key way to do that is activating all of your five senses. And I will credit this little hack to my son, Bryson. And he had shared this with me, and it works. So how do you activate all five senses? Super simple. Wherever you are during the day, and if you can make this a habit, you're going to keep away burnout, is pay attention to your environment. It could be your dorm room, it could be your bedroom, wherever you live, your work environment. And are there things around you that you can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear to bring you into the present moment that actually, if you can, that makes you feel good when you're doing that? So let's just say where you are now, everyone, I need you to find five things you could see. Five things you can see. It could be the wall. I'm looking at some dried flowers. I'm looking at my vision board. I'm looking at candle holders. Five things you can see. Okay. Four things you can touch. Maybe it's the cool velvet. I don't know if anyone's wearing velvet pants right now, but I'm just going to say velvet pants. Maybe it's the tabletop or the desktop. Maybe it's your laptop. The four things you can touch. Okay. Then let's see if there are three things you can hear. Maybe it's the buzz of your laptop. Maybe it's the traffic outside the window. Maybe there's some, I don't know, beep, beep, beep happening outside your door. But three things you can hear. Two things you can smell. Could be, I don't know, I have a matcha in front of me. Maybe coffee, maybe you're drinking some mint tea or something, and then just the air around you. And then one thing you could taste. Maybe it's the roof of your mouth. Maybe it's the berries that are sitting in the bowl next to you. But if you can activate all five senses, then you are actively bringing yourself in the present moment. You're turning off that busy thought, those thoughts that are swirling, that are either putting you too far in the future or holding you too far in the past. So whenever you're feeling anxious, even if you don't remember to do this each and every day as a practice, as a new habit, whenever you're feeling anxious or a little bit stressed or a little bit afraid, activate all five senses. That's it. Because most people, when you say go into the present moment, they don't even know what that means. I wouldn't have known what that meant. But if you tell me, okay, activate all five senses, look at something, listen to something, taste something, touch something, even if it's, what are your feet touching? Is it tile? Is it carpet? Was it wood? Is it cold? Is it hot? And when you do those things, you're in the present moment, you lower your heart rate, and you're in a space of peace, and you can actually tap into creative ideas. You can problem solve from that moment. So let's just say you have to deliver some bad news to someone, and you bring yourself into the present moment. It's going to allow you to tap into the best way of approaching that situation. So when you want to either come up with an idea or keep away stress or anxiety, activate your five senses. That's something you can do. Another thing you can do to increase your creativity is to do something, what I'm going to say is mindful before a project or a task. So when I had to write this book and I had to deliver it in September, I was taking this grad course, which took up most of my time. And I had to do the majority of the additional writing they requested within, this is scary to even think about right now. I'm just stressing out, just thinking about it, in like 7 days. And then so I had to really, really amp up my creativity. And so I walked or I ran or I got my favorite fruit and put it in front of me. I found music that relaxed me and put me in a good mood. And I put that in my space. I surrounded myself with visuals like color and texture that excited me. I had to like pull every little trick out of the bag. So I was in my most creative space and state. And you could do that when you're problem solving as well. So what are some mindful things? I touched on some things you can do. So you can, anything that's active, where like running, yoga, dancing, excuse me, gardening, cooking, these are all mindful activities. So think of something that you like to do that's active. It could be working out at the gym, lifting weights, singing. These are all mindful activities. So if you have a task to do, let's say you have a long day of meetings or you have a paper to write, plug an active thing in front of that, a mindful activity in front of that. And then that is going to juice up your creativity so you can work smarter, not harder. You're going to get through those tasks faster. You're going to be more attentive in your meetings. You're going to come up with ideas on what to write more easily. So these are things that you can do if you're studying for a test. Put something mindful right before that. And break up your day where you're inserting these mindful things. Mindful eating is something that most of us don't think about. Activating your senses, like I said, in between calls, just take a minute, 30 seconds, activate five senses. You know, look at, when I say mindful eating, it's eating slowly and intentionally, paying attention to the flavors, textures. Oh, look at the kitty, kitty, kitty. That's very mindful. Petting your pets, touching your pets is very mindful. So insert those things throughout the day. Okay. Pay attention to your environment. Again, music is powerful. I think it's like number 3 on what can motivate you. I call jazz and reggae my happy music. Okay. And I love classical music. Do not go to like hard rock. I'm just saying there are some frequencies that are going to make you more agitated. All right. So find, like I said, jazz, classical, reggae, can't go wrong. But there may be something else that you like. And bring that into your space when you're working. Okay. Think of healthy foods that, like I said, I love berries. Just looking at berries in a bowl make me smile. You know, bring that into your space. It could be fake fruit, flowers. I don't know if you can see it, but I have sunflowers, vases of sunflowers behind me and next to me. Because when I see sun, it's a gray day today, but when I look at sunflowers, it's like I brought the sunshine in. All right. So think of things that you can bring into your workspace. I know like cactus, like these little cactus plants are really popular now. If they're artificial or real, getting real plants, yes. If you can't, that's okay. The artificial ones will do. Trick your brain. Bring these things into your space. You're going to notice a difference in your output, your creative output, as well as bringing down those levels of stress and anxiety. Okay, so that's also something. Taking that grad course in mindfulness was, like I said, mind blowing. I was never a yoga person because I always did sports. I did track. I did cheer in college, as I mentioned. I did gymnastics. I did volleyball. I did softball. I was an athlete, a very active athlete growing up, all throughout college. And as I'm just thinking, because I was laughing when my kids were younger, and a mom, I just moved to Florida, and another story of burnout, which I tell you guys about. But anyway, I just moved to Florida, and someone's like, "Oh, you should try hot yoga." And I was like, "Yoga, that's not my thing. It's too slow." Whatever. She's like, "No, I'm a triathlon athlete, or you're gonna love this." So she finally convinced me to take hot yoga. First of all, if you've ever taken hot yoga, you're in a room with 105 degrees. Okay. So just standing there without moving is a challenge. And then you're moving into poses that you never thought your body could get into. and there's no breaks in between, let me tell you, it's a workout. Right. But then when I studied mindfulness, there are a variety of yogas that you can take that actually change your physical structure of your brain. Okay. Fascinating. Breathing can also do the same thing. And so just paying attention to your breath can help you increase creativity and beat burnout. There's something called, I believe, heart meditation, where you are breathing to the rhythm of your heartbeat. And if you look at the research and what it does from a longevity standpoint, what it does in terms of memory and other really impactful changes that it makes to your body, it's mind blowing. And there was a psychiatrist, I believe, who had gotten hurt while running. And she was, her physical therapist said, do yoga. She looked at him like she was crazy. I'm like, I'm a runner. What do you want me to do? He's like, do yoga. And the changes she saw in her body made her shift her entire practice in studying the effects that yoga has on us physically and mentally. So yoga, for those of you who have not been exposed to it yet, there might be a form of yoga that you really like, but it is a game changer if you want to introduce a mindful activity into your life. Okay. And just simply breathing is another thing to do. Paying attention to your breath. Again, sit there between phone calls, meetings, class assignments. Just sit, plant your feet on the ground, back straight, and take deep breaths. Pay attention to the pace. Pay attention to, is it cold? Is it warm? Is it hot? You know, and then just doing that alone, you're changing your heart rate. You're making physical changes to your body. And there's a ton of research out there on the effects breathing has on your body and well-being. Wow, I covered a lot. I don't want to keep rambling. I do want to get to the whys. And I do want to pause because I can go on and on and on. And I'm going to share with you some tips on creativity as well. Some really like quick tips that you guys can write down on burnout and creativity. So I want to get to that as well. So I'm going to pause right now to see if anyone has any questions for me. It's a silent hour.
No, I'm loving listening to you ramble, so keep rambling.
Yeah, same here. I think everyone's just very in tune to what you're saying and can't wait to hear more.
Amazing. So what I want to do is I am going to jump to the tips before we close out, but I want to take a moment to just to get to some whys and how we can just use that as examples of how to guide that into structuring a more creative and less burnout path for you. So who wants to be the lucky volunteer to share their why and what they're doing right now?
I'll go first. So I wrote down that I chose to work at UConn and specifically CCEI to make a difference. I want to help guide entrepreneurs through their journey to make a difference of their own. So it creates a chain reaction.
Awesome. And when you shared that, like a scale of 1 to 5, saying 5 is bliss, which I hardly use that word, right? A lot of us say happy, excited, joyful, but I'm going to amp it up. I'm going to say bliss. All right. 1 to 5, 5 being bliss, which is over happy and excited. How did that make you feel? 1 to 5.
I would say it made me feel like a 4 because I'm in the very early stages of my career and I'm excited to see what is to come next. And I feel like I'm one of those people, lucky people that can say I enjoy what I do and that it makes me happy what I do. So I'm excited to see in the future of my career, if I can reach that 5.
Okay, awesome. So just for the sake of this exercise, can you repeat your why again? And then I'll.
My why, I chose UConn and specifically CCEI to make a difference. I want to help guide entrepreneurs through their journey to making their own difference. So it creates a chain reaction.
Okay, so I'm just going to point out 2 things. So you said to guide others to make a difference. So my next question is, why do you want to make a difference? You don't have to answer that. Okay, because a lot of times that leads back to an experience, either a joyful or painful one. It leads to a problem maybe that you want to solve, or it leads to an expectation, right? Based on just your own life experience. So let's just, for this is just an example. Let's say your why to wanting to make a difference is, let's say someone in middle school bullied you and you didn't feel the adults in your life protected you enough, and you want to be that person in someone's life that makes a difference for them, because if someone that was in your life at that point, that would have made a difference for you during that experience. Okay, just as an example. And then let's say once you figured out that why, then you're like, oh, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And it feels good that I can make a difference, but it also may give me more ideas, going back to creativity, and how I can better direct my journey in helping entrepreneurs. So maybe as you're engaging with entrepreneurs, this is just an example of Mary Sue's example. Mary Sue is sharing with entrepreneurs this need to address bullying in middle schools. So maybe they can create a solution for these students at this time in their entrepreneurship venture. And Mary Sue can act as an advisor because she actually experienced that. She actually went through that. So she can actually guide them in how to create this model. So you see how that going deeper in the why, it still made you feel good, because sometimes it doesn't, but it made you feel good. So you know, this is it. This is why I want to do it. And it's going to help guide my path moving forward. It's going to like zero in, and now I have all these other ideas just based on the why. So then I'm going to ask you, Michaela, why entrepreneurs? Because you can guide anyone. Why guide entrepreneurs?
I think it's because the possibilities are endless with entrepreneurs. They come up with so many different ideas that I personally would have never thought of. And it's just an innovative environment. I feel like your day-to-day work is never the same. Like each day you're learning something new. And so it's exciting. I'm excited to go to work and excited to continue to learn instead of going to my like same boring 9-to-5 job, just doing the same thing every single day.
I love that. And so if you know that's part of your ethos and what like gets you going, and believe me, as a serial entrepreneur, there are days that get mundane, even if they don't, they're not repeating, and there are tasks that do repeat. And so you as an entrepreneur would have to build into your days to protect you when you're feeling kind of drained by those mundane tasks, by those repetitive tasks. Or when you feel stagnant in your journey, then recognize that, because you need that newness, you need change, you need variety, so you can then pivot. Because if you don't, then again, you're just going to go down that trail of burnout. So thank you for sharing that. That was great. I think I saw David's hand up. We'll do one other. Was it David? David, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I can share. So I mean, mine's a bit more vague. I'm a student right now at the moment. I'm kind of just finishing up. But I said to influence positive social change while practicing my skills as a student of commerce. So I'm in the business school here, but I think a lot of times it can be hard to find the difference when like or between like entering like a world like maybe like a corporate world and then trying to also pursue the things that you're passionate about, the things that inspire you as well.
Okay, awesome. So why business? Let me ask you that.
I mean, for me, so I'm marketing specifically, and since the time I declared as a freshman, it seemed like kind of relating to what Michaela said, but it's a very broad field. So there's a lot that you can do in the marketing or in marketing, you can go a lot of different ways. And I think that versatility is something that I've always looked for personally. Now I'm also kind of entering more of a sales realm, but I want to remain on a path where I'm not like becoming maybe like the stereotypical salesman or salesperson rather.
Okay, so usually with sales, you tend to like to be around people and have conversations
Yeah.
and find those connections. For me, true sales is really just about helping someone, and it's not really selling. It's almost like being a doctor. If I'm bleeding and someone comes over to me and says, "Here's a Band-Aid, it's $5." I don't care. I'm like blood is gushing out, you know, I'm like, here, just take my wallet. I don't care. You just helped me. You just saved my life, right? If I am super thirsty in the desert and you're like, here's this bottle of water and it's $10,000. If I have $10,000 in my, here, I'm dying of thirst, right? So if you're solving someone's problem, it's not really sales, you're really helping them in the true sense, right?
For sure.
I think when it's not always authentic, it gets like a bad rep. But if you know you really want to be around people and like people, then you could say, well, why? You know, well, maybe I get inspired by them. Maybe I get energized. I don't like being, you know, working by myself or in a cubicle, and being in sales, it forces me to be around people all the time. Or marketing, you mentioned it's very broad. Well, why do you want something broad, right? So when I decided to do fashion, it was like shh. When I wanted to go into medicine, it was like shh. Like it was better because it just got me to that point faster, right? But maybe broad is out of boredom, or you want the flexibility to move around. And maybe it's because if you do change your mind, you don't want to be judged. And why don't you want to be judged? Because you know what I'm saying? So there's all these layers that if you take the time to peel the onion layers, you're going to get to that true North Star that serves you. And that's going to better guide you. So then you're like, well, you know what? Marketing, maybe it's sales, maybe it's storytelling, and I'm just going to focus on websites because I'm really techie. I love working on the computer and I love telling stories, and this helps market and it's going to help sell products. And now I'm just diving into everything I can learn about website design. You know what I'm saying? So even just going back to the why and being okay with accepting all of who you are, not just a sliver that society says, oh, you're an engineer and that's all you are. And, you know, and it's unfair because we are multi-layered, we are multi-dimensional, and it's okay to love science, but then love to paint. It's okay to be an athlete and then want to knit hats. Like, it's okay. Do you know what I'm saying? And so
Sure.
being accepting of all the layers of who you are is so exciting because that's what the superpower is. Like Unleash Your Supernova is literally looking at your uniqueness and saying, oh, whoa, there's no one that loves sales and can market and is interested in business and understands numbers and loves sports. So now I could talk to athletes and sell them these sports drinks because I get it, I know it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like your uniqueness is what your powers are. Like, and that's and the more you go inward and explore those layers of who you are, you come out with this beautiful package that no one else could replicate. And then all these wonderful ideas that come with it, just based on those layers of who you are. So I would just encourage you to continue to peel the onion layers. Why business? Why marketing? Why sales? And keep the ones that feel good. If something is like, it'll really impress my girlfriend, and it makes you feel like a 3 out of a 5, put that to the side. Maybe that's not the one. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but a lot
Yeah.
of times that's what drives us. It's that feeling of wanting to be accepted and loved, and it's not. That's not really serving our core selves because we're not doing it for the right reasons. Because that's temporary. You know, the sustainable is doing it because it's going to make you love yourself more, right? So that's where the endless like fulfillment comes from. So that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Nova.
That was great. I know we're running out of time, so I'm just gonna quickly go through these tips. If anyone wants to write them down, they are, there's tips throughout the book, but if you want like a quick go-to after you read the book, and it's always funny because I'll talk to friends and I'll say, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, well, a wise person once said, and they'll quote something from my book. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you're telling me I need to go back and read my book, or that's what you're trying to tell me? So there's a lot of little nuggets that even though I wrote it, I forget about because life happens and we're human. So this is under how to boost creativity. Unplug. And all of us know what that means, right? And what it can do for us. So I'm not going to go super deep in that, but it also lets your mind wander, right? And when I have to be on my phone and computer for hours on end in meetings and talks and things like that, and sometimes I'll just take a break. Sometimes I'll even cancel a meeting and I'll just sit or lay down, close my eyes, and just let my mind wander and just pull out And then all of a sudden, all these ideas or solutions will just boom within seconds. And when I'll share it with someone, they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Meanwhile, if I'm sitting in front of my computer for 2-3 hours straight, I'm struggling over an idea because I'm just burned out, right? So that's something. Unplug, go for a walk. We talked a little bit about that. Set the mood, music, lighting, textures, color, that does a lot. Ask for advice. So we were just going over your why, but when you share and you're okay with opening up and asking, there's so many people that want to help you. And so that's something that we sort of take for granted. Again, our ego comes into play. I don't want them to think I don't know as much, or I don't know that. If you could let that go and really tap into the knowledge base around you, it could be life-changing. Collaborate, right? Co-create. I mean, some of the best ideas come from collaboration. Always have a pen and paper by you. When you wake up in the morning, by your desk, you never know when those great ideas or solutions are going to come to you. Switch it up, switch up your routine. If every day you go for the latte, don't go one day, go for a walk, or switch the latte to matcha, or do a hot tea, try a different tea. Again, it does something to our brain. It's easier for us to fall into this. We're like creatures of habit, but when you force your brain, it's kind of like with when you're working out, like it's confusion, like muscle confusion. When you confuse your muscles and switch up the exercises, it helps you build muscles faster. The same thing with our brain, right? Take risks. Just do something, I'm not saying jump off a cliff or anything like that. But writing a book was taking a risk, right? It kind of forces you and pushes you into an uncomfortable place. Look for sources of inspiration that you wouldn't normally look. So I'm big in nature. So for me, it's easy for me to go to nature, but maybe looking at lyrics of songs would be a new place of inspiration for me. And maybe that's something that would give me ideas. Meditate. We talked about that a little bit. Be kind to yourself. Our negative thoughts are our worst enemy. We think someone teasing us or judging us is bad. We are our worst enemies as it comes to negative thoughts. So really protect your thoughts. Really, really pay attention to your thoughts. Reward yourself. I like dark chocolate. If I do something and I'm like, what, I did good today. I'm going to go get me a piece of dark chocolate. Find little ways to reward yourself to keep you going. It makes a big difference. Fight your fears. All right. It's usually our fears that holds us back. Why? Because we are, thinking about what would happen if I fail? Who's going to judge me? What am I going to lose? Just cut that off and just take one step at a time. Just be present. Go back to the present moment and just do one thing at a time. I'm going to jump into burnout. There's 101 tips, over 101 tips. So there's plenty in the book, but I'm going to jump to burnout real quick. Think about the projects that boosted your creativity. So throughout your life, think about when were you really creative? Was it first thing in the morning? Was it after you built a deck of cards, whatever? Was it after playing a game of Monopoly? Think about those things that boosted your creativity naturally and do more of that, okay? When and where were you most creative? Is it outside? Is it late at night? These are natural things that we may take for granted. I'm a morning person. Some people are night people, so that's natural. But where are you? Are you in your kitchen? Is it your living room? Is it at the library? Find those places that also boost your creativity. Start small. So a lot of you are entrepreneurs and you have this grand vision and it's overwhelming and that could be stressful. How do I even get from A to Z? Forget A to Z. How do you get from A to A.1? There's so much less stress there and anxiety. If I have to book a meeting with the president of, I'm just making this up, Google, that's just book a meeting with the president of Google. So forget that. Say, what is the first thing that I'll say when I call them? Bring it way back to just small little tasks. Allow yourself to relax, take those breaks, give yourself grace. Listen to your body. If you're sluggish, if you're tired, I could do better at this. When I'm tired, I get the matcha. Take a break. Really, really listen to your body. talk to someone else who gets it. Create your support group within your program. If you're not the only one, pursuing whatever you're pursuing, if it's entrepreneurship, if it's, becoming a fashion designer, find others to share. Because even, your girlfriend, your parent, your mom, your teacher, they love you and support you, but they're not going through that journey. So there's things that they can't share with you that can help support you on that journey. And that's it for me, guys. It took a little longer than I thought, but I hope that you got a lot out of the information. And please, if anyone has questions, I'm going to stick around. I can stick around for another few minutes for questions. Please ask them.
Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much. That was phenomenal. I know this has definitely been my favorite timely topic so far. I feel like a lot of what you said resonated with me, and I'm sure I speak for everyone here. And it was just great to hear you. I know I saw Bonnie had her hand up a few minutes ago. I'm not sure if she still had a question or not. I just want to make sure I give her a chance if she does.
So I actually sent it to her directly. I'm
Okay.
just a mood killer with this, the whole buzzkill drop down. When she was talking about the whys, my question was, what if the why is still valid? Why you entered into the role is still valid, but there's something blocking you from achieving that why? Then what?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So let's say a lot of times finances are a blockage. I'm just going to use that as a broad example. So I'm going to go back to my thing. So couture designer takes a lot of money versus designing t-shirts. And I was raising $2 million at the time, way back when. And I would get at the table, I have the conversation, but no one was signing the checks because I just didn't understand the fashion industry. And that could have been my reason to hang it up, because I needed that to do my fashion company. So I went back to my why and I said, well, why am I doing this? Because there were plenty of days where I wanted to give up. And I was like, well, I want women to feel beautiful from the inside out. So then I was like, well, is there another way I could do this? And so then I said, I'll just open my own store. And so I ended up going to the bank, getting a loan, and opening a store. So it wasn't my original business plan, but because my why was true and authentic, getting those no's on that journey of funding didn't deter me. I could have been like, trust me, there were days where I was like, forget this. But my why was still like, it made me feel good and it was still navigating me. And when that why changed, I also pivoted. So when I left fashion, I pivoted to media because that was a stronger why. Because of the issues with funding and PR and all these other things, I said, I really want to help so many more people not fail, not quit. And that was a bigger motivation for me to put fashion on hold to launch Rain. And so again, if that reason really feels good, it's going to push you through and over. I didn't know anything about launching a magazine, but my why was so strong. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. So I think when you go back to the why, use that to motivate you to come up with another way of doing something. I hope that helps.
That was an awesome question.
Thank you.
I'm
sorry, she really wants to be involved in your meeting.
I'm just going to share her book one more time because I know personally after listening to you, I want to go read your book. So for anyone that wants to write it down or take a picture, here's her book.
And then I do also have a podcast for those of you that like podcasts. I bring on some phenomenal, successful people that share their whys and their words of wisdom. And when I come across, I'm like, oh, I need to bring you on the show. So many people can learn from this. And, because everyone has their superpower. Mm-hmm. Each of you here have superpowers. I'm not going to start singular, superpowers. And it's just embracing that. Like, you don't have to be an age to be powerful and brilliant and limitless. And I think the faster we're able to figure that out, then it just opens up so many more possibilities. And your creativity is just like off the chart. You're gonna have to like keep it at bay. Like, okay, I came up with 10 ideas today. Let me just focus on the 3 I came up with yesterday, And so just recognize like how amazing you are right now.
That's great. And before we conclude today, I do just want to let you all know that our next Timely Topics is coming up on Thursday, April 14th with Rach Brand, who will be talking about commercializing big ideas, how to push yourself to think bigger. So it definitely goes hand in hand with what Nova discussed today.
Absolutely. And I'm on LinkedIn for anyone that wants to follow and connect with me. And it's Nova Lorraine, 2 R's AINE, on LinkedIn. So look me up and connect, and we can stay connected. Happy to support you on your journey moving forward as well.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you.